You got $10,000 that you want to invest somewhere in Africa, but you don't know where to start. In this video, I'm breaking down a business idea that has waiting list, recurring revenue, and real profit margin. And the best part, you can get started right away. So a few weeks ago, Oyen reached out to me. She had some money. She wanted to invest in the Gambia and did not know where to start. I'm going to bring you behind the scene of this very important conversation that looks at the numbers, the potential, and a business idea that you can start today. Hi, Oyen. How are you? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Sandra.
Good morning. So I know when we're chatting, you were saying that you've been able to save up about $10,000 and you are looking at different places and ways you can invest that money.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Awesome. So typically what I like to understand, and we can deep dive into that a bit later, is understanding what you like and what you're passionate about. And one of the things that you kind of share with me is that you do love anything education-wise because you have a background as an educator. Did I get that right during our intake?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you did get that right.
Okay. Which is very exciting for me because there's a business opportunity that I've been really looking at over the past few years here in the education sector. So what I wanted to do is go through just high level numbers. Please keep in mind that these numbers are just like, they're not confirmed at all, but just to give you a breakdown of what this could potentially look like for you and how the money, where the money will be segmented, just to give you some visual. But I thought this would be a good time for us to really look through at the opportunity and the potential return on investment when it comes to this idea. What do you think?
Yes, I'm open to listening to
Okay.
any ideas at this point. Yeah.
Awesome. So the first thing that I like to talk about is just the mindset, and then we'll dive into numbers. For a lot of people that live abroad, the big problem that they have, and I know this is something that I went through, is that they look at the number and they try to compare it to the US, right? So if they have an opportunity where they can be making $500 a month, just for an example, they're like, I can make $500 a month doing Uber, right? It doesn't sound like a lot of money. Although $500 a month here in the Gambia is a lot of money. So I want to put perspective around that, because otherwise you could miss on real opportunity on the continent because you're thinking, I need to make millions of dollars. And I love to mitigate risk, right? Which simply means that I want to make sure that if you're spending $10,000, we want to make sure that you're able to get that money back within the next 3 to 5 years, if possible. And we're not, because otherwise, yeah, take the money and invest it abroad, right? But if you want to invest it on the continent, there's so many benefits to it. But we have to also understand that you're not going to invest $10,000 and make $10 million in the next year. This is not what this is. You got to look at this as a long game. You got to look at this as a retirement, as almost your retirement plan, right? That what can $1,000 coming from the continent every single month do for me when I'm retiring, or a year from now when I'm moving back to the continent? Otherwise, again, this is going to sound like a lot of work with very little return. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense. Like the idea of having to not look at the present, we're looking at the future. That makes sense.
Exactly. I love that. So I'm going to share some number with you. And like I said, disclaimer, these numbers I just threw them together really quickly for this meeting. They've not been fully vetted or anything like that. But I figured that if you had some things to look at, it'll be very helpful to center our conversation. So I'm going to share my screen here in a second. Let me know if you can see my screen, okay? So the business idea that I wanted to share with you is the idea of starting a pre-K school. The education sector here in the Gambia, I believe, is one of the greatest untapped markets right now. Lots of children. The Gambian population is rather young, growing. And one of the things, again, just from talking, I've been here for 4 years and talking to friends and people around, one challenge is finding quality preschool for kids to attend. There's a segment of the population here in the Gambia that really wants to make sure that their kids can compete. So this could be people that went to school in the diaspora or people that are just well off, right? The top 10% of the population that really want to make sure like that their kids are getting quality education, if not better than what they will get if they were abroad. They don't necessarily aspire to say, I want my kids to travel just to go to preschool. They want their kids with them, but they don't want to compromise their education either. And so there's a lot of opportunities. When we first moved, Oyen, just to give you some idea and some background as to why I really think this business could work for you. When we first moved and I was looking for school, a lot of the school had waiting lists. Okay. And so that's what you want. You want a business that has high demand and low inventory. And that's what this business will do for you, I think. So the preschool business model, let's talk about how we can take that money, that $10,000 that you've saved, which by the way, it's good, right? Because I just did a video before talking to you where I was talking to people about spending $500 and be able to get a return on the investment. So $10,000 gives us something to play with. And what I've done here with these numbers is I've broken them down into one-time startup costs, right? These are the things that you need to spend right away on, and then we're going to have recurring costs. So basically what you're doing is you're opening up a pre-K school, right? Like a pre-kindergarten for kids anywhere from the age of 6 months or 1 year old all the way till 4 or 5, right? Before they actually formally go to school. Does that make sense? Any question? How do you feel before we even dive into these numbers? What are the first things that kind of come to mind when we're talking about just starting, the idea of you starting a preschool?
Yeah, that didn't actually come to mind. I didn't even know I could actually start a pre-K school with what I have though. But I think my only question is, can I actually start it with $10,000? That realistic?
That's a good question. So what I did is I gave you two options, right? One that will fit within the budget, one that will stretch us a little bit out of the budget, okay? But one thing that we want to make sure that we are providing, of course, is quality. It's quality, and the quality is going to come from your teachers, making sure that these kids are actually learning. And if you're able to solve that problem and provide quality and just add 1 or 2 or 3 things that nobody else is doing, you are going to have children on a waiting list. So let's talk numbers. First thing, your biggest expense here is going to be rent, right? Like you need to pay rent. And typically here in the Gambia, in a lot of countries in Africa, you got to pay rent a year in advance. So when it comes to rent, you are looking at anywhere from $6,000 a year for a house. And what a lot of people are doing here is they are renting houses. And so that's the other thing too that I like people to understand when we are talking about starting businesses here on the continent, is that forget the images you have about how things are supposed to look like in the US and actually get into what it looks like on the continent. So you don't have to build this school from scratch and it having to look a certain way. We want it to look great. We want it to be beautiful. But a lot of the time what people do here is they rent a home, they rent a house, and then they're able to tailor it to fit the format of a school. So let's say that you were renting a home. You could get a home anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. I put an option here if you get a home for $10,000, which is a lot. $6,000, you could get a really nice home, 4-bedroom, a living room, a dining room, a kitchen. And I want you to think about the bedrooms as classrooms, right? So if you have 4 classrooms in your school with a huge, your living room now becomes like a playroom. You can have it turn it into a music room. Your dining room can be another place, maybe a place where the kids come together and do activities and art and craft. So that's kind of how you want to think about it, right? Is that a home can be restructured to fit that model. So $6,000, we could rent a home for the year, right? Unfurnished home in a nice area, a nice looking home for the year on the low end. And when I say low end, honestly, like you could find a really nice home. Now, if you wanted to go all out, we could put $10,000 towards it, but that would take away your whole budget. So $6,000, we are able to get the rent. Any questions about that?
What about going premium? What if I want to go all out?
Yeah.
But to stay within the budget?
So to go all out within the budget wouldn't be possible. I think if we are doing what we can do in terms of going all out, even if we did the rent for $6,000, will be in decoration, right? How do we getting very creative with making the place look a certain way? And so if you wanted to, you could actually lower the rent instead of $6,000. Maybe we get a place for $4,500. It is important for us to have that 4-bedroom because we want to make sure that you're able to have 4 classrooms. And I'll show you why that matters, because basically you want each child paying, right, is giving you the revenue. And so we don't want to shortchange on the space, on the number of rooms or the size of the rooms, because we want to get as many kids in there comfortably, right? And so the number of room becomes really, so if for $6,000 we could get a 5-bedroom, I say let's do that, because that's 5 classrooms, that's more children, that's more revenue. So could we go all out, as you said, yeah, we could do it with design. So setting some money aside to make the place look really nice. And there are so many incredible ways we can do that. We can do that with art. There's so many amazing artists here that can do incredible designs on the wall and make that place really feel like a kid's heaven, a place where children actually want to show up. So that's just one of the expenses. The other expenses, really quickly, because I want to make sure we are able to also talk about recurring costs here, Oyen. Things that we want to talk about or think through is furniture, right? I put here 428. That might be stretching the budget a little bit. We're going to have to really get creative to be able to get your furniture. And what you need really mostly is tables and chairs for the kids. So I put that amount here for that. Learning materials and toys. We can get a lot of these things secondhand, ship here into the Gambia. Again, we got to be very creative, but we can. A lot of, how they call, not secondhand store, thrift store abroad will have books. I know in the US for $1, right? Kids books. So we can get a ton of books and really good learning material there. We'll need to make sure that we are running a legal business. So licensing and registration, we got to account for that. Marketing, how you're going to market your business. One easy way that I tell people here on the continent, word of mouth is big. Using WhatsApp, it's big, but TikTok is a big one. Bringing people on the journey is key. So let's say that you even did a series on TikTok saying, hey, watch me build Gambia top pre-K school. And walking people through your journey is a way for people to actually buy into your idea. So social media is going to be big in terms of making sure that we are not just telling people there's this new school, but we bring them part of this thing that we are building and making sure that we are sharing what's going to make this different than everything else that we have on the market. Bathroom setup, we put some money. And then operating reserve, we want to make sure that we got some money set aside. Because business, right, up and down and everything. And so here we've put aside about $1,714. That should cover about 3 months of just your monthly recurring expenses. So total, in terms of one-time spent, will be about $8,000. Let's call it $9,000 for you to start to set up this business. $9,000 for you to set up this business, give and take. Again, these numbers will confirm them and all that stuff, but just high level, you're looking at about $9,000. How do you feel so far? And then we can cover monthly expenses, monthly operating costs here shortly. But how do you feel so far?
I would say having all of this cost written down, I would say it is really going to be helpful. So helpful if I do go this route. So I feel great. It's like more on it, and yeah.
Okay. No, really good. And now also really quickly in terms of recurring expenses, I put rent here but for budget for the second year, right? The first year you would have already paid, so that this total of 1,141 is minus 500 because you've already paid for that. We want to allocate for teachers. So what does it cost on a month to run this business? You got to pay your teachers depending on the number of students you're going to have. So let's say that you start with 3 classrooms, right? You can have a teacher per classroom. You can have 5 to 10 kids or 5 to 8 kids per classroom, depending on the age, right? So let's say that you started with 2 to 3 teachers. You can pay them anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, which is good because you want to attract really good teachers. This business is it's going to either work or not work based on your teachers. Everything else that we talked about is great, is cute, but your teachers is going to determine the success of this business. So we want to make sure that we get incredible teachers that are patient, teachers that understand your values, teachers that are going to see the kids, right? The kids' potential, teachers that are creative. And so that's really where we want to make sure that we are spending some money. You're going to need utilities. You can provide snacks and meals if you want to, supplies, marketing and maintenance, right? And so your running costs can be anywhere from, I put here, it's $1,100, but minus 500. So you are looking for probably about $700 to $800 a month to run the business every single month. All right. But remember that with your one-time starter cost, we already put aside 3 months. This includes already 3 months. So you could get started with your $10,000. You could run this business for 3 months and be okay. Okay. And then this doesn't include the teacher fees, but this includes the teacher fee, but we have to remove the $500 because you already paid it. But what I want to talk about is profit, what the revenue, what you are able to potentially make with this business. So in terms of tuition, on the low end, all right, based on my kind of preliminary research, on the low end, you are looking at about low to mid range. Let's say low to mid range. You're looking about 15,000 to 25,000 per term. 15,000 to 25,000 that I see per term. That's about $214 to $357 per term. That 3 terms. Okay, that 3 terms per year. 3 terms per year. So easily for one child, you could be making $60,000 a year, which is about $850 a year. $850 per child that you could make. So the first year, if you were able to get 20 kids, if you're able to get 20 children in at $20,000, you could be making $1.2 million. You could be making $1.2 million for 20 kids. That's about $17,000 that you could be bringing in. Okay. If we get 30 kids, because remember, we got 3 rooms or 4 rooms, so there's space for that. If you got 30 kids, you could be making $1.8 million. That's about $25,000 that you could be making your first year running this business in revenue. In terms of profit, once you cut out the expenses of running the business, you could easily make in profit about $10,000. So the $10,000 that you brought in, you could recover your money within a year. By the second year, you're just making profit. You could make your money back. If everything goes right, you could make your money back within the first year. Worst case scenario, within the second, third year. How do you feel about those numbers though?
Yeah, I feel great. Like for students, I'll be making like quite a lot. So if I can get more students into the school, I think I feel great. I think my only challenge here would be I'm not very tech savvy. I'm not very social on social media. So the way I would get more students to the school, I don't know.
That's a point. So in terms of when it comes, and I say this to my clients all the time, nothing happens until you sell something. So all of this looks really good on paper, but the implementation is key. And so if you need help when it comes to marketing, we definitely have a company that we work with. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay. So if you need help when it comes to marketing, we have a company that we partner with when we work with clients and run their marketing for them, because that's going to be key for this. And you are not here. So you're not necessarily going to be able to showcase the behind the scene, which I believe is the future. And when you think about all the big brands, they're now showing behind the scenes because that's what people want to see. People want to understand, they want to be part of something. They want to feel like it's our school, right? And so bringing them behind the scene as we build this is going to be so incredible, so incredibly important. But like I said, we can help you with all of that. We can help you with the marketing. We can help you with the implementation because we are on the ground. Yes. Do you have to be the one that's tech savvy to do it? No, you do not. But that's just one part. The other part even also is the day-to-day. Are you planning or have you started thinking about, would you be here running the business, or are you thinking about outsourcing that piece?
Yeah, I won't be here running the business. No.
Good. So I love that. That's really important and critical that there is somebody, whether it's you, and it's great when it's you as well, because you have the passion, it's your baby, right? And there's something about having the CEO or the person, the founder in-house. So that's one way. We've had clients outsource that piece because they can't leave the amazing job that's paying them $50,000 or $100,000 a year to come and look after this business that's not going to generate the same amount right away. And so for that, sometimes they will rely on us to help them really build that out. But I'm glad that you are able to come in. Both options are available and a thing. The last thing I want to show you though is the premium Montessori level model. There are a few schools here that are Montessori schools and they charge premium. They're charging about $45,000 per term. Okay. I know somebody who is paying about that amount per term per child. That's about $642 per term. So they're spending almost $2,000 a year. And if you're looking at that business model, those numbers go crazy because you can easily make $30,000 in profit with just 20 students and $70,000 with 50 students. You can make $70,000 with 50 students, and that's with one school. Imagine if you now have 2, 3, 4, 5 schools. Now we are talking about a business that's bringing you, or you have a bigger school. So instead of renting a house, maybe you've built something, right, where there's a proper, like an actual thing, an actual school with classrooms, and you have 10, 15 classrooms in there. the sky is the limit. At that point, you're talking a 6-7 figure business. And so there's growth here, which is what I love. I love to always make sure that when we are talking about building a business, that there's potential for growth, right? And so, yes, we can start small, but please understand that there's really potential for growth with this business. Any final question before I let you go about all of this?
No, I'm actually sold, so I have to go and discuss with my husband and I'll let you know. But I'm really sold on this, so I'm definitely going to go back and tell him everything you've just told me. Because I want something I'm not looking at like just in the present, right? I'm looking at something we can do for our future, even when we retire.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited because, like I said, you have the expertise and the experience. This falls right within your wheelhouse. It's something you're passionate about, and we really need incredible skills here. And the more the merrier, because Gambia is exploding, is growing. And so education, you know this already. Our kids are our future. And I'm really excited to have you potentially come and build something that's going to be a game changer for the economy and the children on the ground. Thank you so much, Oyen, and we'll be in contact, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, so that's it. This is the pre-K business model. Like I shared with her on the call, these numbers are subject to changing. But the idea, you got it, right? You want to look for a business that's high in demand and the inventory is low. And it's something that you can start, but also scale. If you like this type of videos, please make sure to comment, subscribe, and turn on your notification for more videos like this. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.